So I welcome Shahana Singh. She's an author, commentator who writes on a variety of issues, including water management, environment, and Indian history. She was born in Mysuru but grew up in Kolkata and Delhi. She's passionate about traveling, connecting the dots across different societies and culture. She has been published in various issues of Reader's Digest, Washington Post, Discovery Channel, Asian Water Magazine, Swarajya, India Facts, Mind Makers, and others. She's currently the director of Indian History Awareness and Research, IHAR, a nonprofit headquartered in Houston. So, Shahana, welcome.
নমস্কার সবাইকে আমাকে আমন্ত্রণ জানানোর জন্য অনেক ধন্যবাদ. So this is the Bengali I can manage. I have not spoken for a long time, so I hope you will excuse me if I speak in English. But I have very beautiful memories of growing up in Calcutta. Some of my best teachers were Bengalis, so I owe a lot to them for my foundation in almost every subject. Um, I would like to bring attention to the educational heritage of India. That's what I would like to talk about today. I think Bengal needs to urgently connect with her educational heritage to the ecosystem of learning, which had made India into the educational capital of the world, to which scholars came from different parts of the world to study under the best teachers. And we know that Bengal, Bihar, Odisha, that whole region was full of universities, some of the best universities. I mean, there were other hubs also in India, but Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha were very well known. Like when I was plotting the map of India and putting all the universities in it, there was a cluster of educational centers in that region, right? So that is the time that I want to go back to and talk about how it was such a great land that it is amazing that we are not talking about it in our when we teach our history today in today's education system. So I also noticed that the Saraswati Puja that is celebrated in Bengal, it probably one of the few places in India where it is celebrated in that scale. Saraswati Puja is done in other parts of India as well, but the kind of connection with the divine feminine that Bengalis have, right? That's at a totally different level. But then when you see the irony, when you look at the way education is being imparted in Bengal, and then you see that it's Eurocentric. Where is that Indic, where the Indic way of looking at things, the Indic lenses, right? That is totally missing. When I was researching for my book on India's educational heritage, so then I discovered that all the things that we admire today about Western education, whether it is the culture of debate, the libraries, the conferences, the mentorship program, the commencement ceremony, almost everything has its root in India. It all started in India, and of course Bengal too. So and I find that people don't know about these things, which is very sad, right? Today we are at a time when we need motivation. There is a whole lot of self-loathing, right? We see that there is poverty, the infrastructure is not up to the level. But that the thing which can really motivate you to do something is when you connect with your great heritage, the educational heritage, and you use that as a driving force, right? When I did my research, I came to know about so many methodologies of teaching, right? It was not just dry teaching, classes, right? There were a lot of ways of teaching. There were games, there were educational games like Golok Dham, right? When we talk about today, there is corruption, the value system is missing. That doesn't come, it doesn't come by waving a magic wand, right? So there were games like Golok Dham where, what we call the snakes and ladders, which is the sanitized European version of the game, right? Where you go to a certain number and then you climb up or you come down, right? But in the ancient India, it was all connected to values, right? So if you're dishonest, then a snake brings you down to square one. If you're malicious, you come back to square one. So those kind of values which were instilled in the educational system itself via games, via stories like Panchatantra. So that is something that I came to know, found it amazing. Then there is also, when I went back and looked at what the landscape was in the 1800s, right? So Dharampal has written about the educational system in India at that time, based on surveys done by the British themselves. And so the survey in Bengal revealed that there were about 10,000 schools in Bengal alone. Every village had a Pathshala. Now, of course, some people might say that it is an extrapolated number, but the fact remains that literacy was very, very high. Almost everybody was literate. Can you imagine something like that in India and in Bengal? So it was like that. And all the schools had arithmetic, they had language, they had epics. So the literature, they used to study the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And then when you look at what Adams wrote in that survey, of course, Adams is critical that, you know, the educational system is in a state of decay. What he saw was in a state of decay. But even then, he says that in some of the humbler schools of Bengal, I found that what they are teaching is so relevant to their own lives. It's such a practical kind of education that we don't have this in Scotland. He was from Scotland, so he mentions that. Uh, and then there were so many innovations in the education system in that time. In 1813, there is a Christian missionary called Reverend Robertson. So he talked about a very unusual system of examination, competition. He says that the higher classes of all the schools in Bardhaman, they were brought together in one place. And then the top student of one school will ask a question to the top student of another school. And if he is not able to answer, then the next guy will try to answer. If not him, then the next guy. And in this way, the boys from the top students and the second from top students will be asking questions to different school students, like their counterparts. And it was so much fun. So this person is, Robertson is saying that the way they're doing the examination is so much fun. And he's also pointing out that the Brahmins are sitting next to the Shudras. He's saying that there doesn't seem to be any segregation. And so the Brahmin who's sitting next to a Shudra is actually getting sometimes lower marks than the Shudra, and but they're all sitting together and having a good time. So he's marveling at the education, the innovation in Bengal, right? So so what I'm saying is that when we look back into our history and look at the heritage, it's not just that we talk about the glorious time and just, you know, have that sense of nostalgia. There are so many things we can take from there and apply it to our education system today, like the holistic learning that they had, right? So there was no, for example, a separate subject called environment. You know, it was all part of every subject. Every subject had environment in it. That kind of learning it was, and the system was such that the students were not treated like, you know, containers in which you have to fill up facts and formulae. It was like you have to light the lamp within each person, so that person is self-illuminated as well as is going to show the path to others. That was the kind of education that we had, and we can take lots of ideas from there. There were memory techniques that were taught specifically so that they're able to remember, and we know today that memory is so important if we want to progress, right? Memory is actually the key to many things, our whole character actually. The other thing is we need to move away from the Marxist narrative, which is there completely, it's seeped into all the textbooks. So when I look at the syllabus, or if I look at this textbooks, I was helped by Deptanu Chakrabarti, and I was going through various textbooks, whether it's Bengali, English, science, history, in every subject, the Marxist narrative seeps into it. So for example, I noticed that in history, you know, the despotic tyrants are shown in a softer way, you know, that there is shying away from the truth, as if the truth is somehow going to bite you. So, you know, stay away from that. So the despotic tyrants are watered down and made to look nicer. And then there is also a tendency to have that, you know, apply the subaltern lenses. So the, you know, the industry is shown in a bad light. Industrialists are shown as exploiters, people who are sucking away the blood of the people. Now, okay, you might talk about that in a contextual way. You know, if there was a time when it was like that, but if you perpetually in the textbook show industry as a bad thing, then, you know, you're going to create that whole negativity around the market forces, right? Which is very wrong, and which probably has led to what Bengal is today, right? So I think all these things need to be looked at when we decide on a vision for Bengal.
Right. Shahana, thank you for this wonderful insight. I know there are excellent content and presentations available on the website of IHAR, IHAR. So I would request everybody to go visit, and you can connect with the thought leadership there as well. So one of our conveners, Shaftik, he has assimilated some questions, and he has some very, enlightening view on the subject matter as well. So I would request Shaftik to come and speak to you at this moment. Shaftik Mukherjee.
Yes. Shahana, first of all, you explained very nicely the whole flow of events and how the things have moved, how literate people were, and then how they fell into illiteracy, and how the whole decadence happened. And it is happening for a long time. We say that the best days of Bengal were during British period. It is not the case. Um, but however, we had people like Acharya Prafulla Chandra Rai during the British period itself, and he was a person who was the first technology entrepreneur from Asia, um, and he built a company, and he was also a chemist. Actually, he wrote a book, A History of Hindu Chemistry, from the earliest times to the middle of the 16th century. It is never talked about. Um, so not only this connection from the present times, but also historically we have Aryabhatta, we have Bhaskara, we have a host of icons who have been who have created the foundations of science uh, for the entire humanity. So there is a continuity if you look at Bharat as a whole, and you say that there's a cluster of universities in the eastern part of Bharat. But Bharat as a whole, there has been luminaries who were founders of science. But so the knowledge is not something the British are giving. The knowledge is something that is a continuity of that knowledge. Sometimes the invaders came, it was broken, but then Nalanda was destroyed. But there has been a continuity of knowledge. When a child looks up that continuity, the child feels that you know the person who are the founders of science is from my place, from my soil, and if they could do it, we can do it too. How we can bring back that continuity so that in the mind of a child there is a feel that they have created science for the world, for humanity, and we can do it much better than what we are doing now.
আমি
So I
এক
think
সেকেন্ড শাহানাদি জাস্ট এক সেকেন্ড আমি ইন্টারাপ্ট করছি। কানাডা থেকে আমার সাথে রিসার্চ স্কলার রাজর্ষি, ও তোমার টক শুনে খুব ইন্সপায়ার্ড, এবং ও জাস্ট 1 মিনিটের মধ্যে একটা কোয়েশ্চেন রাখবে। রাজর্ষি, প্লিজ আনমিউট ইয়োরসেলফ and ask the questions to Shahanadi.
Am I audible?
Yeah, sure.
Namaskar, Shahanadi. I have been following your work on social media for very long, and I really appreciate your work. So I have just one thing to say. That is, I have read a few days back. I read a book, "The Destruction of Classical Europe" by Catherine Nixie. It describes how classical European civilization and education was destroyed by the Christian missionaries. And I have later on I have found that similar techniques were used to destroy the education system in India, starting from Bengal. So basically, Bengalis and the educationists or intellectuals of that time were brainwashed and used against our own civilization to destroy it. So, and for example, another book by Meenakshi Jain, about Sati. The thing is, it was not as prevalent as it was shown. So my point is, how do we bring forth all these facts to the people? Because if I bring this in front of people, anyone, whoever it is, the first thing that I hear back from them is, "Oh, you are a Bengali hater. You don't know anything about your own culture. You don't know anything about your own history. We have changed this. We have changed that." But the main point that I have failed so far to bring in forth is, I cannot bring in front of them how they themselves were used to destroy their own culture and civilization, and it is still going on. The whole destruction is still going on. The brainwashing is still going on. That's why we find people who are who hate their own culture and civilization, and they are aping the Western civilization more than themselves. So my question is, how do we change this? How do we bring forth the narrative that actually we were the ones uh, who are not regressive? It was the Europeans who were burning their own women at stake, and not us. So how do we bring all these narratives forward? That is my question to you.
Thank you so much. So this is all about changing the narrative, right? So this is what, like, even my organization is trying to do, that Indian History Awareness and Research, right? So we the talk that I gave, the book that I wrote. So there is awareness about this. I'm seeing a rising awareness, but now it comes to how do we change the textbooks? There, of course, we will also be accused of being revisionist if we try to change the textbooks. But we have to start somewhere, because we are seeking the truth. There are so many countries with different mottos. India is the only country which has Satyameva Jayate as the motto. Others have, praise be to Allah, liberty, equality, fraternity. We have Satyameva Jayate. That means we are seekers of truth. And when we seek the truth, and if we go back and read our own history, we read our Vedas and we read our Itihasa, if we learn our languages, then the truth reveals itself to us. So what are we afraid of, right? So, so what I wanted to actually talk about was the vision that I have for Bengal. Of course, it's at a very higher level. When it has to be implemented, then there are many things to take care of. But number one, we need to reflect the true history of India, and we need to project the real the heroes, our native heroes. I mean, if you're going to teach laws of physics and you start with Newton, that's a travesty, because you have Kanada who has actually laid out all those laws of motion in beautiful Sanskrit words, right? And so, I mean, if we are not teaching our children about Kanada, Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta, Bhaskaracharya, who have actually laid out all the foundation for science, right, then we are doing a big disservice to ourselves. So in our textbooks, number one, we need to reflect true history. The Eurocentric approach has to go. Right now, the mainstream has become the leftist way of looking at everything, right? So we have started looking at ourselves as if we are not within it, as if we are outsiders, and then we are looking at ourselves. That has to go. So we have to write our own history as we view it from our perspective. That will be the mainstream history, and the others can be in the side. That cannot be the main history, right? So today's textbooks in Bengal, I see that they don't talk about what the Vedas have taught us, how they gave that intellectual robustness to India, and which is what created that educational capital in India, and why people wanted to study under the famous acharyas of India. They actually came looking for those teachers. They knew Srila Bhadra, they knew all the names of those teachers from whom they wanted to learn. And that's why they came for the admission tests and tried to clear the admission test, right? So textbooks should reflect our true history, and we need to do what it needs to be done for that. Incidentally, our organization helped with Telangana textbooks. We gave them, we sat on a voluntary basis. We analyzed all the textbooks from class 6 to 10. Every chapter of the social history book, we wrote down notes, compiled them, and sent it to them. They actually accepted 40% of the changes we recommended. So I think it can happen, right? And then our textbooks in Bengal, need to talk about how Bengal is an intrinsic part of the Indian civilization. So right now, there is all this North Indian, South Indian, this and that. But if you see, people came from different parts of India and settled in Bengal. So from, Gangetic Plain, Uttar Pradesh, people came to Bengal. From southern India, people came to. I'm finding so many people went and settled down in Bengal, and they have Bengali names today. Nobody knows where they actually came from, south or north or whatever, right? So that ecosystem of learning grew in Bengal because people came from different parts of India. And then there was a distinct culture, of course.
Talking about the ecosystem, Shahana, I just wanted to remind you that I know you did significant work with the government of Telangana in about incorporating some revisions in the textbooks curriculums. If you could just share something that maybe we can look at in West Bengal as well.
So I just mentioned that. So we did that. So for example, when I looked at the textbook on geography, right? And they're talking about there are 4 seasons in India. And it was completely from the Western perspective, summer, winter, autumn, that kind of thing. And so I wrote to them, I said, where is this, the Vasant Ritu, the Grishma Ritu, the Varsha Ritu? Give the seasons from the Indian perspective. what we call the seasons, and what are the festivals we celebrate in those seasons, what is the significance of those things. That is not being taught, and even the seasons, even climate is being taught from the Western perspective. So we analyzed all that and we submitted it. As I mentioned, about 40% of the changes we recommended were taken up. Other things, of course, the caste system and all is a bit harder to penetrate over there. And we also got them to change, dasa. Dasa is not slave. In many of the textbooks, they say that, we had slavery in ancient India. Dasas were not slaves. If you look at it, they were all being paid. They were servants. So, there is this desire to conflate the European history with Indian history. So whatever happened in Europe must have happened here as well. That kind of outlook, that has to change. So our historians have to look at our history written from our perspective, because we have plenty of books available already. So many researchers who have already written in Sanskrit, in Kannada, in Bengali. We should take from all of that and write our history, right? And the other thing is entrepreneurship has to be incorporated through our textbooks, right? So when you say that there is no industry in Bengal, all that is, where is that happening? Why is that happening? That's because industry is being projected so negatively in the textbooks, right? So if you see, even I was shocked to see in Telangana, for example, the way they described, there was a whole chapter on how the industry is exploiting people, and the government needs to crack down on that. And that kind of thing was there. And government is shown like a MyBab, an entity that has to give subsidy to everybody, give food, give everything to people. So that's not the way textbooks should orient the children. They should be taught about market forces. They should be taught about, ask questions to solve the problems. So they should be taught to be problem solving, right? So that's how you get the leaders from the students, right? So problem solving skills, communication skills, and also the interdisciplinary approach. So it's like, okay, come on, what does a physicist say about this? What do chemists think about this problem? So you have to have all disciplines coming and talking about a problem. And that approach has to start right from the school textbooks itself, school assignments. So those are some of the things. I can just talk all day. But if we really want the, people like Prafullo Chandra Rai, Bidhan Chandra Roy, we want those people to be created again in Bengal, then the education system needs to be changed. The textbooks need to be revamped. That's what
absolutely. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, Shahana. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and we hope you're visiting Bengal soon.
I hope so too.
Absolutely, thank you. Shapanda, tomar kichu bolar ache eta niye je ancient past এবং future generation ke connect kora niye?
আমি এইটুকুই বলতে চাই, and thank you, Shahana, for this very inspiring presentation. I think one of the practical ways in which you can probably help is to first evolve a critique of existing textbooks in Bengal, and I think we need that for someone who's well versed in pedagogy to be able to do that. I mean, it's just not sufficient for just specialists to do it. It's also, remember that it's also the instruction which is quite important. I mean, I've noticed that in Sanskrit, one of the main problems is it's not that Sanskrit is not taught, it's that the way it's taught is rubbish. So it's that's the first one. And second one, but for heaven's sake, please do bring out alternative textbooks. You may not get a mass market to begin with, but you will get enough teachers, you will get enough students who will be interested and sufficiently in that for that to have a multiplier effect, and for that to have a cascading pressure point on the system.
Absolutely. So I wrote my small book and I'm expanding that now. So I hope that can be used as a textbook at some point.
Yeah, I'm certain that that can serve as a sort of a reference point in what is possible. People can modify it, people can add to it, people can put in their regional context to it, etc. All those things can be done. Yeah. But broadly speaking, a certain thrust, I think, please do continue with your endeavors, and I wish you all the best, and I hope we can at some point take up some of your ideas, because I think sometimes people say, where is the alternative text? At least it gives us additional ammunition when we say, okay, this is one, take this as a template to move ahead.
Thank you so much for the encouragement.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shahana, and thank you, Shapanda, for your insight. With this, we will move to our next session of entrepreneurship and